There is a shadow that follows every human being from the moment they draw their first breath until the day they take their last. It whispers in the darkness of uncertainty. It paralyzes in moments of opportunity. It masquerades as wisdom while feeding on potential. This shadow has destroyed more dreams than failure ever could. It has buried more fortunes than poverty ever has. It has silenced more voices than oppression ever will. That shadow is fear. But here's what the masses will never tell you, what the mediocre will never understand, what the comfortable will never accept. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is your teacher. Fear is your guide. Fear is the compass that points directly toward everything you were born to become. Napoleon Hill spent 25 years studying the most successful individuals of his era. He interviewed over 500 of the world's most accomplished people, and in every single case, without exception, he discovered one universal truth. The difference between those who achieve greatness and those who live in mediocrity is not intelligence. It's not talent. It's not luck or circumstance or background. The difference is their relationship with fear. While the masses run from fear, the successful run toward it. While the ordinary see fear as a stop sign, the extraordinary see it as a green light. While the comfortable view fear as an enemy to be avoided, the destined understand fear as an ally to be embraced. You see, fear doesn't exist to stop you. Fear exists to show you. It shows you where your growth lies waiting. It shows you where your power is hidden. It shows you the exact path to everything you've ever wanted but been too afraid to claim. Thomas Edison faced the fear of failure over 10,000 times before he perfected the light bulb. But Edison understood something the world had forgotten. Every fear conquered becomes strength gained. Every terror faced becomes power claimed. Every anxiety overcome becomes confidence earned. Edison didn't eliminate fear, he transformed it into fuel. Henry Ford trembled with fear when he conceived the idea of mass-producing automobiles. The experts told him it was impossible. The investors called him a dreamer. The critics labeled him a fool. But Ford looked his fear in the eye and asked the most important question any human being can ask: what if this fear is not warning me away from something, but calling me towards something? That question changed everything. Because Ford realized that his fear wasn't trying to protect him from failure, it was trying to guide him toward destiny. This is the truth they don't want you to know. Your fears are not random. They are not accidents. They are not meaningless anxieties floating through your consciousness without purpose. Your fears are coordinates. They are a map. They are the universe's way of showing you exactly where your treasure is buried. The thing you fear most is often the thing you need most. The conversation you're afraid to have is the conversation that will change your life. The risk you're terrified to take is the risk that will set you free. The dream you're scared to pursue is the dream that will define you. But society has taught us to worship comfort and flee discomfort. We've been conditioned to seek safety and avoid danger. We've been programmed to choose certainty over possibility, security over growth, the known over the unknown. And in doing so, we've sentenced ourselves to lives of quiet desperation, forever wondering what could have been if we had just been brave enough to face our fears. Here's what I need you to understand. Every single person who has ever achieved anything significant has had to walk through the valley of fear to reach the mountain of success. There is no shortcut around fear. There is no bypass. There is no alternate route. The path to greatness runs directly through the heart of your deepest fear. Walt Disney was fired from his first job for lacking imagination and having no good ideas. He faced the fear of being seen as a failure, the fear of financial ruin, the fear of his dreams being nothing more than childish fantasies. Mickey Mouse was born from bankruptcy. Disneyland was built on the ashes of doubt. Disney's empire rose from the grave of fear. But Disney understood something profound. Fear is not the opposite of courage. Fear is the raw material from which courage is forged. Without fear, there can be no courage. Without terror, there can be no bravery. Without anxiety, there can be no confidence. The fearless are not those who feel no fear. They are those who feel fear and choose to act anyway. They are those who hear fear's whisper and respond with action. They are those who acknowledge fear's presence and proceed with purpose. Abraham Lincoln suffered from what we would now call crippling anxiety and depression. He feared public speaking. He feared failure. He feared that his ideas were too radical, his vision too ambitious, his dreams too grand. But Lincoln made a decision that would not only change his life, but change the course of human history. He decided to use his fear as fuel rather than allow it to be his prison. Every great speech Lincoln gave was given in spite of fear, not in the absence of it. Every monumental decision he made was made through fear, not around it. Every historic action he took was taken with fear as his companion, not with fear as his enemy. This is the mindset shift that separates the extraordinary from the ordinary. The ordinary try to eliminate fear from their lives. The extraordinary try to harness fear for their lives. Fear is energy. Fear is power. Fear is potential waiting to be unleashed. The question is not how to avoid fear. The question is how to transform fear into the force that drives you toward your destiny. Carnegie understood this principle when he built his steel empire. He feared financial ruin with every expansion, every investment, every risk. But Carnegie realized that his fear was not a sign that he was moving in the wrong direction. It was confirmation that he was moving in the right direction. Fear doesn't arise from pursuing the wrong path. Fear arises from pursuing the path that matters. The comfortable never feel fear because they never attempt anything worth fearing. The mediocre never experience terror because they never reach for anything worth the risk. The ordinary never know anxiety because they never step into the arena where greatness lives. But you were not born to be comfortable. You were not created to be mediocre. You were not designed to be ordinary. You were born to be extraordinary. You were created to be exceptional. You were designed to be legendary. And legendary lives are not built in the absence of fear. They are forged in the presence of it. The moment you understand this truth, everything changes. The moment you stop running from fear and start running toward it, you unlock a power that has been dormant within you your entire life. You discover that fear is not your limitation, fear is your liberation. But let's be clear about what fear really is, because most people completely misunderstand its nature. Fear is not some external force attacking you from the outside. Fear is not some cosmic punishment for your ambitions. Fear is not some universal sign that you should stop, retreat, or give up. Fear is your mind's way of alerting you that you are about to do something significant. Fear is your consciousness recognizing that you are about to step into a larger version of yourself. Fear is your soul's acknowledgement that transformation is imminent. When you feel fear, you are not feeling weakness. You are feeling strength, awakening. When you experience terror, you are not experiencing vulnerability. You are experiencing power emerging. When you encounter anxiety, you are not encountering limitation. You are encountering possibility. The ancient warriors understood this principle. They knew that the trembling they felt before battle was not cowardice, it was their spirit preparing for victory. The butterflies in their stomach were not signs of weakness, they were signs that something important was about to happen. The racing of their heart was not evidence of fear, it was evidence that they were alive, alert, and ready to claim their destiny. John D. Rockefeller built the Standard Oil empire while battling intense fears about market volatility, government regulation, and competitive threats. But Rockefeller made a crucial distinction that most people never make. He separated the feeling of fear from the meaning of fear. The feeling of fear is inevitable. The meaning of fear is optional. Most people feel fear and immediately assign it a meaning. This fear means I'm not ready. This fear means I'm not capable. This fear means I'm not worthy. This fear means I should wait. This fear means I should quit. But successful people feel the exact same fear and assign it a completely different meaning. This fear means I'm growing. This fear means I'm expanding. This fear means I'm evolving. This fear means I'm on the right track. This fear means I'm about to break through. Same feeling, different meaning, different life. Theodore Roosevelt was afraid of physical confrontation as a young man. His father had to build a gymnasium in their home because young Theodore was too afraid to defend himself. But Roosevelt didn't let his fear define him. He let his fear refine him. He used his fear as motivation to build his body, strengthen his character, and develop his courage. That same man who was once afraid of physical confrontation would later charge up San Juan Hill, lead expeditions into uncharted territories, and become one of the most fearless leaders in American history. Roosevelt didn't conquer his fear by eliminating it. He conquered his fear by transforming it. This is the secret that changes everything. You don't overcome fear by avoiding what scares you. You overcome fear by doing what scares you. You don't defeat terror by running from it. You defeat terror by running toward it. You don't conquer anxiety by eliminating risk. You conquer anxiety by embracing risk. Every time you face a fear and act anyway, you don't just overcome that specific fear, you build your fear-facing capacity. Every time you feel terror and proceed anyway, you don't just handle that particular terror, you strengthen your terror-handling ability. Every time you experience anxiety and continue anyway, you don't just manage that individual anxiety, you develop your anxiety-conquering power. Fear is like a muscle in reverse. The more you use it, the weaker it becomes. The more you exercise it, the less control it has over you. The more you engage with it, the more you realize that it was never as powerful as you thought it was. But here's where most people get confused. They think conquering fear means never feeling afraid again. They believe that brave people don't experience terror. They assume that confident individuals don't feel anxiety. This is completely wrong. Brave people feel fear more intensely than cowards because they put themselves in situations where fear is inevitable. Confident individuals experience more anxiety than the insecure because they attempt things that matter. Successful people encounter more terror than failures because they dare to dream bigger dreams. The difference is not in the presence or absence of fear. The difference is in the response to fear. Colonel Sanders was 65 years old when he faced the fear of starting over with nothing but a fried chicken recipe and a Social Security check. He had every reason to be afraid. He was old, broke, and attempting something he had never done before in an industry he didn't understand. Sanders felt the fear. He acknowledged the terror. He recognized the anxiety. But then he did something that separated him from 99% of humanity. He used his fear as fuel rather than allowing it to be his brake. Sanders was rejected over 1,000 times before someone finally said yes to his chicken recipe. 1,000 rejections, 1,000 fears faced, 1,000 terrors conquered, 1,000 anxieties transformed into action. Kentucky Fried Chicken was not built despite Sanders' fear. It was built because of Sanders' relationship with his fear. Every rejection strengthened his resolve. Every no increased his determination. Every setback fueled his comeback. This is the paradigm shift that transforms lives. Stop trying to eliminate fear from your journey and start trying to integrate fear into your strategy. Stop viewing fear as an obstacle to overcome and start viewing it as an asset to leverage. Stop seeing fear as your enemy and start seeing it as your ally. The greatest minds in history have understood this principle. They've recognized that fear is not a bug in the human operating system, it's a feature. Fear is not a glitch in human consciousness, it's a guidance system. Fear is not a design flaw, it's a design feature. Think about it logically. If fear truly existed to harm you, why would evolution have preserved it? If terror genuinely existed to limit you, why would it be hardwired into every human being? If anxiety actually existed to stop you, why would it be one of the most universal human experiences? The answer is simple. Fear doesn't exist to stop you. Fear exists to prepare you. Every fear you feel is your system's way of preparing you for the challenge ahead. Every terror you experience is your consciousness getting ready for the breakthrough coming. Every anxiety you encounter is your mind mobilizing resources for the victory approaching. When you reframe fear this way, everything changes. When you understand that fear is preparation rather than prevention, you begin to welcome it rather than resist it. When you realize that terror is mobilization rather than paralysis, you begin to embrace it rather than avoid it. Winfrey was terrified of public speaking. As a young woman, she would physically tremble before going on stage. Her heart would race, her palms would sweat, her voice would shake. But Oprah made a decision that would define her career and her life. She decided to interpret her fear as excitement rather than as limitation. That reframing changed everything. Instead of seeing her trembling as evidence that she wasn't meant to speak publicly, she saw it as evidence that something important was about to happen. Instead of interpreting her racing heart as a sign to retreat, she interpreted it as a sign that she was fully alive and engaged. Today, Oprah is one of the most powerful communicators in the world, but she still feels the same physiological responses before important presentations. The difference is not in what she feels, the difference is in what she believes about what she feels. This is the secret that successful people know but rarely share. They don't feel less fear than unsuccessful people. They feel the same fear but interpret it differently. They experience the same terror but respond to it differently. They encounter the same anxiety but use it differently. Fear is neutral energy. Like electricity, it can power your lights or it can burn down your house. The difference is not in the electricity itself. The difference is in how you channel it, how you direct it, how you use it. When you plug electricity into a light bulb, you get illumination. When you plug electricity into a motor, you get motion. Fear works the same way. When you plug fear into action, you get courage. When you plug fear into preparation, you get readiness. When you plug fear into focus, you get intensity. Same energy, different channels, different outcomes. Steven Spielberg was afraid that his movies wouldn't connect with audiences. That fear drove him to perfect every scene, refine every story, and create films that would touch millions of hearts. His fear of irrelevance created some of the most relevant movies in cinema history. Michael Jordan was afraid of not being good enough. That fear drove him to practice harder, train longer, and push further than any basketball player before him. His fear of mediocrity created legendary greatness. Steve Jobs was afraid that Apple would create products that people didn't want. That fear drove him to obsess over every detail, perfect every design, and revolutionize entire industries. His fear of failure created unprecedented success. Do you see the pattern? Fear is not the enemy of success. Fear is the fuel of success. Terror is not the opposite of achievement. Terror is the engine of achievement. Anxiety is not the barrier to greatness. Anxiety is the pathway to greatness. But most people never discover this truth because they spend their entire lives running from their fears instead of running toward them. They spend their energy trying to avoid discomfort instead of trying to embrace discomfort. They dedicate their time to seeking safety instead of seeking growth. And in doing so, they sentence themselves to lives of quiet desperation, forever wondering what could have been if they had just been brave enough to face what frightened them most. Here's what I need you to understand. Your fears are not punishments, they are promotions. Every fear you face is life's way of promoting you to a higher level of existence. Every terror you conquer is the universe's way of upgrading your capacity. Every anxiety you transform is reality's way of expanding your potential. The person who has never felt the fear of financial ruin will never build lasting wealth. The person who has never experienced the terror of rejection will never create meaningful relationships. The person who has never encountered the anxiety of failure will never achieve significant success. Fear is not optional if you want to live an exceptional life. Fear is mandatory. Fear is required. But here's the beautiful paradox. The more you embrace fear, the less fearful you become. The more you engage with terror, the less terrifying it becomes. The more you dance with anxiety, the less anxious you become. This is because fear is ultimately an illusion. Fear is nothing more than false evidence appearing real. Most of what you're afraid of will never happen. Most of what you're terrified about exists only in your imagination. Most of what you're anxious about is nothing more than your mind creating problems that don't exist. Franklin D. Roosevelt understood this when he declared, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." He wasn't minimizing the challenges facing America during the Great Depression. He was revealing the truth about fear's nature. Fear is not the problem. Fear of fear is the problem. When you fear your fear, you create a prison within a prison. When you become afraid of being afraid, you lock yourself in a cage within a cage. When you develop anxiety about your anxiety, you build walls within walls. But when you accept fear as a natural part of growth, when you welcome terror as a sign of expansion, when you embrace anxiety as evidence of evolution, you transform your entire relationship with these emotions. You stop fighting against them and start flowing with them. You stop resisting them and start redirecting them. This is the mastery that changes everything. Learning to surf the waves of fear rather than being drowned by them. Learning to ride the currents of terror rather than being swept away by them. Learning to harness the winds of anxiety rather than being blown off course by them. Every surfer knows that you cannot control the ocean, but you can learn to work with it. Every sailor knows that you cannot command the wind, but you can learn to use it. Every pilot knows that you cannot eliminate turbulence, but you can learn to navigate through it. Fear is your ocean. Terror is your wind. Anxiety is your turbulence. You cannot eliminate them, but you can learn to work with them, use them, and navigate through them. J.K. Rowling was a single mother living on welfare when she began writing Harry Potter. She was afraid of failure, afraid of rejection, afraid of never escaping poverty, but instead of allowing these fears to paralyze her, she allowed them to fuel her. Every fear became motivation to write another page. Every terror became inspiration to create another chapter. Every anxiety became determination to finish another book. 12 publishers rejected Harry Potter before one finally said yes. 12 rejections. 12 opportunities to let fear win. 12 moments when terror could have triumphed. 12 instances when anxiety could have conquered. But Rowling understood something profound. Rejection is not the opposite of success. Rejection is the pathway to success. Failure is not the enemy of achievement. Failure is the teacher of achievement. Setbacks are not obstacles to greatness. Setbacks are stepping stones to greatness. The Harry Potter series has now sold over 500 million copies worldwide. But those 500 million copies exist because one woman refused to let fear make her decisions. Those billions of dollars in revenue exist because one person chose to use terror as fuel rather than allow it to be her brake. This is the choice that defines every life. Will you let fear make your decisions, or will you make decisions in spite of fear? Most people let fear choose their career, their relationships, their dreams, their goals, their actions, and ultimately their destiny. They don't consciously decide to live fearful lives. They just unconsciously allow fear to live their lives for them. But you have the power to choose differently. You have the ability to take back control. You have the capacity to reclaim your authority over your own existence. The first step is awareness. You must become conscious of how fear operates in your life. You must recognize its patterns, understand its triggers, and identify its strategy. Fear is a master manipulator, but it loses its power the moment you see through its tactics. Negative fear will tell you that you're not ready. It will whisper that you need more preparation, more education, more experience, more money, more connections, more time. But here's the truth. You will never feel completely ready for anything significant. Readiness is not a feeling. Readiness is a decision. Abraham Lincoln didn't feel ready to lead a nation through civil war. Churchill didn't feel ready to guide Britain through World War II. Kennedy didn't feel ready to put a man on the moon. But they made the decision to be ready. And that decision transformed not only their lives, but the course of human history. Fear will tell you that you're not good enough. It will remind you of your past failures, your current limitations, your obvious shortcomings. But here's the truth. Greatness is not about being good enough. Greatness is about becoming better than you were. Every master was once a beginner. Every expert was once an amateur. Every legend was once unknown. The difference between those who achieve greatness and those who remain ordinary is not their starting point, it's their commitment to growth. Fear will tell you that success is for other people. It will convince you that exceptional achievement is reserved for those with special talents, unique circumstances, or extraordinary luck. But here's the truth. Success is not about being special. Success is about being consistent. Consistency beats talent. Persistence beats genius. Determination beats luck. The person who shows up every day will always defeat the person who only shows up when they feel like it. The person who keeps going when things get difficult will always surpass the person who quits when things get uncomfortable. Howard Schultz grew up in public housing and watched his father struggle to find steady work. He had every reason to believe that success was for other people, that wealth was for other families, that achievement was for other backgrounds. But Schultz made a decision that changed everything. He decided that his circumstances would not determine his destination. Schultz felt fear every step of the way as he built Starbucks. He was afraid of failure, afraid of bankruptcy, afraid of disappointing investors, afraid of proving his critics right. But Schultz understood that fear is not a stop sign. Fear is a speed bump. It slows you down, but it doesn't stop you unless you let it. Today, Starbucks has over 30,000 locations worldwide. But every single one of those locations exists because one man refused to let fear write his story. Every single cup of coffee sold represents a victory over terror. Every single dollar of revenue represents a triumph over anxiety. This is the power that becomes available to you when you change your relationship with fear. You stop being a victim of your emotions and start being the master of your emotions. You stop being controlled by your feelings and start controlling your feelings. You stop being governed by your fears and start governing your fears. But this transformation requires a fundamental shift in how you think about courage. Most people believe that courage is the absence of fear. They think that brave people don't feel afraid. They assume that confident individuals don't experience terror. This is completely backwards. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is action in the presence of fear. Bravery is not the elimination of terror. Bravery is progress despite terror. Confidence is not the lack of anxiety. Confidence is confidence built through anxiety. Every act of courage in human history has been performed by someone who was afraid. Every display of bravery has been demonstrated by someone who was terrified. Every example of confidence has been exhibited by someone who was anxious. The Wright brothers were afraid their flying machine would crash, but they flew anyway. Rosa Parks was afraid of the consequences of refusing to give up her seat, but she refused anyway. Neil Armstrong was afraid of the unknown dangers of space travel, but he launched anyway. Neil Armstrong was afraid of the unknown dangers of space travel. Courage is not a feeling. Courage is a choice. Bravery is not an emotion. Bravery is a decision. Confidence is not a sensation. Confidence is an action. You don't find courage by waiting for fear to disappear. You create courage by acting while fear is present. You don't discover bravery by eliminating terror. You develop bravery by moving forward with terror as your companion. You don't uncover confidence by avoiding anxiety. You build confidence by succeeding in spite of anxiety. This is the secret that transforms lives. You become what you repeatedly do, not what you occasionally feel. You are defined by your consistent actions, not your temporary emotions. You are shaped by your persistent choices, not your fleeting sensations. If you consistently act with courage, you become courageous, regardless of how afraid you feel. If you persistently choose bravery, you become brave, regardless of how terrified you are. If you continually select confidence, you become confident, regardless of how anxious you feel. Your feelings are temporary, your actions are permanent, your emotions are fleeting, your choices are lasting, your sensations are momentary, your decisions are eternal. Sarah Blakely felt intense fear when she invested her life savings of $5,000 to create Spanx. She was afraid of losing everything, afraid of failure, afraid of looking foolish. But Blakely made a crucial distinction. She separated her feelings from her actions. She felt the fear, but she didn't let the fear make her decisions. She acknowledged the terror, but she didn't let the terror control her choices. She recognized the anxiety, but she didn't let the anxiety determine her destiny. Blakely went from door to door, facing rejection after rejection, feeling fear with every presentation. But she understood that rejection was not personal. Rejection was statistical. She knew that no was not permanent. No was temporary. She realized that failure was not final. Failure was educational. Today, Sarah Blakely is a billionaire. But that $1 billion exists because one woman understood that fear is not a barrier to success. Fear is a bridge to success. Every dollar of her wealth represents a fear faced. Every achievement in her career represents a terror conquered. Every milestone in her journey represents an anxiety transformed. This is what becomes possible when you stop trying to eliminate fear and start trying to leverage fear. When you stop fighting against your emotions and start fighting with your emotions. When you stop being divided by your feelings and start being unified by your purpose. Your purpose must be stronger than your fear. Your vision must be clearer than your terror. Your commitment must be deeper than your anxiety. When your why is bigger than your worry, when your dream is stronger than your doubt, when your mission is more powerful than your fear, you become unstoppable. But finding your purpose, clarifying your vision, and deepening your commitment requires you to do the one thing that most people will never do. You must get comfortable being uncomfortable. You must learn to embrace uncertainty. You must develop the ability to thrive in ambiguity. Comfort is the enemy of greatness. Security is the assassin of significance. Certainty is the killer of achievement. Everything you want exists outside your comfort zone. Every dream you have lives beyond your safety zone. Every goal you've set waits outside your certainty zone. The moment you choose comfort over growth, safety over opportunity, certainty over possibility, you choose mediocrity over greatness. You choose ordinary over extraordinary. You choose existing over living. But the moment you choose growth over comfort, opportunity over safety, possibility over certainty, you choose greatness over mediocrity, you choose extraordinary over ordinary. You choose living over existing. Richard Branson has built an empire worth billions of dollars by consistently choosing discomfort over comfort. Every Virgin company was launched with fear as his companion. Every new venture was started with terror as his partner. Every bold decision was made with anxiety as his advisor. But Branson understood something that transformed his life. Discomfort is temporary, but regret is permanent. Fear is fleeting, but missed opportunities are lasting. Anxiety is momentary, but unfulfilled potential is eternal. The pain of discipline weighs ounces. The pain of regret weighs tons. The discomfort of growth lasts months. The agony of stagnation lasts decades. The anxiety of risk exists in moments. The suffering of safety extends through lifetimes. You will experience pain either way. You will feel discomfort regardless. You will encounter difficulty no matter what. The question is not whether you will face challenges. The question is what kind of challenges you will face. Will you face the challenge of growth or the challenge of stagnation? Will you face the challenge of risk or the challenge of safety? Will you face the challenge of pursuing your dreams or the challenge of abandoning your dream? You get to decide